Hey gang, Carl White here. I was talking with Chris Haynes, is a private client of mine. We've become very dear friends. Seven-figure income, very successful loan officer, branch manager, located in Nashville, Tennessee. And we were talking, and I just hit the record button. And after asking, of course, if I could, and I then asked him, "Hey, as a seven-figure income guy, what's the three top pieces of advice that you would give loan officers today?" And and so here it is. It was very unscripted, very impromptu, and but I thought you'd benefit from it. So without further ado, here's a recording of that conversation. So three pieces of advice. So before I hit the record button, you said something. I said, what's the three pieces of advice to a loan officer that you would give as somebody that's very successful? Um, and you asked me a question, a new loan officer or one already in business. So I'd be interesting if there's a distinction between those two.
Yeah. Well,
So
I
I
haven't
didn't
thought
put a,
about the answer to either
no, I
one,
get
so
it.
it's
Yeah,
just
this is on the fly. We're just sitting here talking. I just hit the record button. So three pieces of advice you give a loan officer. Let's say brand new in the business.
so brand new. So I have a guy that I'm actually in the process of bringing on. He's got sales experience. He's got financial background. We don't normally do that because we're not really set up to do that. But
Yeah.
um, so man, just shooting from the cuff. I think number one, you got to learn to make your calls every day, right?
Mm,
You gotta have your lists. Be willing to make the calls. Um, be willing to go through that rejection no matter what.
yeah.
Um, Number two, man, is I would say, and I'm taking my own notes here, but start building your database, right? So I think a lot of loan officers, when they get in the business, they just start spraying and praying, right? They meet people, and they're not building something that they can work, right? Even their closed loans. I talked to guys who've been in the business for years, and they've changed companies two or three times. I'm like, well, hey, what about your closed client database? Well, I lost it when I did this over here, and I've only got a couple hundred people in it, even though they should have thousands of people potentially. And and we know that's our gold mine.
So you could say on database though, you could actually kind of break that or put two people in that one group. It like these people either I've done a loan for or that was a hot prospect, including friends and family, right?
Hmm.
But again, database could also be our real estate agents that's not referring to us yet.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even real estate agents you that are referring to you, they're in your database. They're
Mm-hmm,
getting my mail,
hmm.
they're getting my email, they're getting all the messages. I think building that up as you meet somebody, then they get systematized where you're following up with them and calling them.
Yeah.
Um, so learn to make your calls every day. Start building a database. And I think something for a new loan officer that they have to be good at is becoming good at loans. Like I know we have a team,
Hmm.
um, but I think a lot of the best loan officers that I've known, they may not do it now, but when they started, they they grew their trust by they could do the loan, right? They could
Hmm.
they could be a loan ninja, like they
Hmm.
would get that information and figure out how to plug it in and make it work. Now, a lot of loan officers when they get to a certain point, they don't do that anymore. Like I don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
My team does it. Now I still figure
Right.
out
Right.
some loans sometimes, but I think man, when you're out there building trust with people and you're new, if they ask you questions, you're like flipping about the answer, or don't know the answer, or don't know how to put deals together, don't know how to give good advice. Um, I feel like it hamstrings you, and
You know,
it's hard
though,
to build trust.
I have to tell you and I love your three, by the way. Um, the thing about knowing loans, the one of the biggest mistakes I see people do when they're new or when they've been doing it for a while, like low producers, is they focus on that instead of making my calls, working my databases. And so there's safety in let me go read some more guidelines because I can't fail at that. Nobody's going to tell me no
Right.
when I'm reading more guidelines. So I agree with your three. I think, maybe what it would be, it'd be like, hey, for 2 hours a day, I'm making my calls. for an hour a day, I'm working my database, and for an hour a day, I'm reading guidelines or getting done the loan process, and instead of, hey, for this month, I'm going to learn, and for the next two
Right.
months, I'm going to learn loan, get to know loans, because you might be the most knowledgeable poor person, and there's
Yeah.
a bunch
Yeah.
of
If
the,
you don't do the calls and you don't produce the leads, who cares what
you,
you know?
you don't, yeah, you don't need to know the loan. All right, what would you, so you meant anything on this list that'd be different with an existing loan officer?
Well, for an existing loan officer, hopefully they already know the loans, right? If they've been doing
Good
it 10
point.
years
Good
and
point.
don't know how to
All
do
right, so
loans.
let's qualify it. Let's say somebody closing at least two loans a month, and they want to get to eight
So number one is the same thing. Get
calls.
used to prospecting and making the calls, because that's
Okay,
the biggest thing that I see that people just don't do. They're not consistent. They're not making calls. They're not meeting new people. Um, I think number two is something that they're probably not doing. If they're doing two loans a month, they don't have a good database. They don't work their database. They're not working a system. So I think
which would
if
almost go back to the not making the calls.
right,
So
yeah,
the calls, the database is just one of the four sets of calls that we make during the week.
hmm
Right? Am I right?
yeah, yeah. So
Anything else you do to your when you say work database?
so
Anything anything
when I,
other than the calls?
yeah, so when I'm saying database, I'm saying, when I meet Carl White, right, for lunch,
Yeah.
that he goes in my database. I'm going to categorize him as a VIP. He's going to get my emails. He's going to get my mail. He's going to get invited to things. The
Mhm.
database is all my realtors. It's everybody, right? Now that when we say database calls, that's our closed client calls, right? When we say, hey, we're going to call our closed client or database calls, that's that one particular. But everybody goes in the database to get marketed to, so that you have a marketing plan, right? So that I can give somebody a marketing plan, but if they only got 30 people to market to, you just don't have a big enough market
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
market, right? And part of that could be, Facebook and learning how to do Facebook ads and the targeted marketing and all the
Mhm.
things that go along with that. Um, so somebody doing two loans a month, they're not making their calls. They probably have call reluctance. They're probably not working a database and in their
Yeah.
past client sphere of influence.
Number three.
They should already be a loan. They should already know how to do loans.
Yeah.
Trying to think, man. I think it would be get a mentor and a coach
Mhm.
that gives you the plan and tells you the next step. I
Yeah.
think that people get to where they're doing two or three loans a month. We talked about it before you hit record, and then they get comfortable. I did three loans last month. They're kind of some bigger loans, make 10 grand. That pays the
Yeah.
bills.
Making 120 grand. Life is good.
Life is good.
Mhm.
It's good enough. I watched a
Mhm.
thing about Nick Saban, and he was talking about how most people are just average,
Mhm.
right? And it's good enough.
Which is the
You know,
definition of average.
it's the definition of average.
Most
It's good
people.
enough.
Most
Yeah.
people.
And I'm
Mhm.
averaging lots of things that I do in life, right?
Mhm.
Because you don't
Just
excel at
not
everything you
this.
do.
Just
Yeah,
not this.
you just like, hey, if I'm going to work, I want to excel in my work.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so you don't want to be you don't want to be average. You want to. Well, I'm talking to Carl White, right? There's a reason I talked to Carl. Carl's farther down the road than me. I can learn something that could save me 10 years. Tony
Much more
Robbins
handsome.
says,
Much more handsome.
yeah,
Much
I
more
mean,
handsome.
I learned all kinds of
Yeah.
beauty tips from Carl, everything.
So
Tony's,
what did
but
somebody
Tony
say?
Robbins says, learn to condense decades into days,
Mhm.
right? So if I can go learn how, take a 1 day training workshop or a 3 day workshop or something and learn something that would take me 10 years on my own, and I literally can learn it in 3 days. So I just condense that.
Or literally, literally, somebody's in Arizona, fly to Nashville, treat Chris Haynes to lunch for an hour with the right questions, and then right after lunch, fly home, asking the right questions. That could literally shave literally years of work off of their success curve. Literally.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. So I think my three, probably not different. Make the calls. Now, see, I had a little more time to think because as you're doing, I'm thinking, So make the calls, 100%.
I'm taking notes as you talk because I
Well,
always do.
so this is gonna, and I would say, and this is going to go against what a lot of people might think. I would say stay off of social media because I think that's a horrible rabbit hole. Used right, it's a great weapon, but I'd say less than 1% do it right. They're intoxicated by, but I got this many views, I got this many likes, maybe even I got X amount of quote, and I'm using air quotes here, leads
Leads.
that I got 487 leads that won't close, right?
Right.
Um, so so I'd say number one, make your calls. Number two, until you're closing, let's say minimum 5 loans a month, you got no business on social media. Social media won't help you get to five. It'll keep you from it. It'll keep you from doing the real activities. And I would argue that anybody that disagrees with that, their team closes less loans than mine does. 100% of them. I would say literally 100%. Or yours, Chris. Same thing. I'd put you in that same category. And then number three, man, I think I would I would embrace the referral partners. I mean, to me, that's one of the things that makes this like the best career ever. Is we get this free sales force out on our behalf doing marketing to refer to us. Like, who else has that? Where I don't have to do market. Like, if I want to talk to 3,000 people, there's two ways to do that. Number one, I go through the trouble and expense, which would be vast, to talk to 3,000 people. Or I could talk to 10 agents that each have 300 people in their database. And I can tell you, it's way easier to deal with 10 than 3,000. And so many people, like a good majority of our industry, I think repels, the referral partner thing. And I don't want to deal with them. I don't want them to be in control. And I just, again, 100% of those people, their team closes less loans than mine.
Yeah.
And I would say, again, you'd fall in that same category. And so for me, the referral partner is the secret sauce. We get loans from our database. We get loans from running uh, social media ads to targeted list of qualified agents in our past database. But I saw a stat, and I might be off 1 or 2 points. If I remember right, 67% of all loans close with the loan officer that the real estate agent recommended. 67%. Who would ignore the 2/3? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Just
And I
crazy.
think people have personalities, they got egos, and do I want to work with every agent? Of course not, right? There are some agents you probably
Oh,
do a
for
deal with, and
sure.
you're like, you know what? That's not my, I think you've told me
Not
that,
my cup of tea. Yeah.
yeah, well, there's 25% of it that are going to love
Yep.
me, right? Find your 25%. And that's where you have to do. And man, I was really good at that, Carl. And, I know this is being recorded. Um, man, I love the referral partners as I was coming up, but I didn't have a ton of them. And then as I grew more, and I think that's one thing of as you get larger, it's hard to maintain the relationship, right? Because
Mhm.
Carl, me and you I feel like we have an amazing relationship, but we talk on video once every 2 weeks, right? Where when I was first started making phone calls, like, hey, you got to call 30 realtors. I remember that was the first assignment when I first got into coaching
Yeah.
13 years ago. Like, okay, man, 30. Okay. I had to find my list of 30. I had 15 that I knew that sent me business that, like, okay, that's pretty easy. And I had to like fill out some more. Well, this was 30. So it was pretty easy to keep up with that. Well, now on my list, I've got, I don't know, 250 that we've done business with, that we've, did business with 3 years ago. It's more difficult to maintain those relationships versus, man, it would be easier to just go back to having 40 relationships
Yeah.
and maintain 30 or 40. And
High
maybe this is
quality,
a high
like
quality.
high quality.
but they come and go, right? Because some people you have a great relationship, but they don't do the business they did 3 years ago,
Hmm.
right? So you got to figure that out. And then man, one of the, I think the biggest tricks, the biggest challenges in our business is me and Carl have a great relationship. Carl sends me all his business. I knock it out. I get him referrals back. Carl gets bigger and hires 3 buyers agents. Well, now you got Susie, Joe, and Bill
Hmm.
that don't know Chris or Chris's team. So me and Carl still do some business, but now it's all getting filtered through these 3 new people,
Hmm.
right? And Susie leaves the team, and Jill is the new
Yeah.
girl that filled her spot. And it becomes, man, I love Carl, but dude, Carl, you closed 20 buyers last year, and I got 2 of them. Well, it's getting filtered through these 3 people who that I think that's the biggest that was a big challenge for me. Um,
So what's the solution to that? Just, I mean, for me, it's always been always adding to the referral partners. Because one thing that really cool about, like, if when we spend our time doing real prospecting and adding new referral partners in, we start to get really picky. And not that we're being jerks about it, but if it's not working out well, that's okay. I just added 3 more on this month. And by the way, every time I add one on, it's about $35,000 a year in income.
yeah,
Figure a loan a month, $3,000 per loan. Some people more, some less, but just figure as a probably national average. So if I'm
that's a
closing
that's a
one per month,
whale that's a whale realtor that can send you a deal a month. I mean, they got to be closing what 25, 30 buyers a year to send you one a month.
well, why go after anybody else?
True.
I mean, dude, it's never been the way that we can look up these reports using Redder or
MMI.
what's MMI, list reports, loan officer CRM.ai, all these things that have these reports where you can look up these agents. Holy cow, has that been a game changer? Because now I don't rely, because what is it? 96% of all real estate agents are not what we call qualified. In other words, they don't have business to refer to you. 96, only
Not done.
4% are closing 8 buyer sides or more in the last 12 months. Only 4%. So if I talk to a room of 100, only 4 of them are worth my business time, not my personal time, different list, but my 9 to 5 business time, Monday through Thursday, only 4 out of 100. That's an actual stat. That's impressive. So don't go after the other 96. Go after uh go after 4. Hey, I appreciate you doing this little bit with me
Yeah, yeah.
here. Um, hey, just real quick, a shameless plug. You're an awesome branch manager. Um, you and I have known each other for years and years. You come with my highest recommendation. You didn't know I was going to do this recording. I appreciate you doing it with me.
Sprung it on me.
Yeah. If somebody wants to reach out and just kind of see like who does what at a winning team and how you're a 7-figure income loan officer. What's a good way to reach out to you?
They can email me, chaynes and that's Haynes at preferredrate.com, or my phone number. I'll give you my direct number, 615-945-3994.
Why don't you give that phone number one more time, a little slower?
Yep, 615-945-3994. And text me first because I get a ton of spam calls. And a lot of times, if I don't recognize the number, don't have it saved, I will not
Yeah.
answer it. So text me who you are, and I will be glad to call you back.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, I think that's it. So this is Carl back. I hope you enjoyed that recording that I made of myself and Chris Haynes. Super nice guy, super smart guy, and yeah, I get paid nothing for endorsing him, um, other than knowing it's a good endorsement to make. So hey, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. Hey, if you have any suggestions of episodes or topics that you'd like us to cover, boy, I'd love to hear it. And you can just email us at support at the marketing animals, and tell them you have a suggestion for the podcast, and they'll send it over to me. So thanks again. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all the great reviews. I appreciate those too. And we'll see you on the next episode of Loan Officer Freedom. Thanks again, everybody. Bye bye.